I'm Amy. I'm the Director of Professional Programs at Forté. And if you hear me refer to my imaginary friends behind the scenes, Alexia and Anna, I'm telling you, they are here. You just can't see them right now. I hope everyone's having a good day. I'm excited about today's leadership coach session. The leadership coach workshops are some of my favorite at Forte because I like to think of them as like quick bites, right? Like a little shot of leadership development. So I'm hoping you all benefit. I still see people rolling in. I'll give them 1 or 2 more minutes. But as I said, hope everyone is doing well. If you have any comments or thoughts, I believe you could put them in the chat. And thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get started now. So, as I said before, I'm Amy Orlov. I'm the Director of Professional Programs at Forte, and I'm so happy to be here today. It's probably because of what I do for a living, but leadership and management are just always on my mind. What makes a good manager? And more importantly, how do we become a good manager? But actually, the spark for today's session came from an email. I get a lot of newsletters to stay up to speed. And one day, a McKinsey quarterly popped into my inbox. It was one of their quick read features, one of their 550 pieces called Better Bosses. And then it pointed to a longer article. But the quick read and the longer article kind of stopped me in my tracks. You know that feeling when you're reading something and you think, wow, I've never thought about that in that way before? That was the moment that inspired this conversation. Here's the core idea. We are all living in a world that feels increasingly heavy, and we carry that weight with us wherever we go. There's political division, there's global conflict, there's economic pressure, there's personal stressors like family, health, mental well-being, and the list can go on. And this is what people are carrying when they show up to work, including your employees and maybe even including you. There's a lot about work and life that's out of our hands. And honestly, it's out of our employer's control. But one thing that really does make a difference, and that both organizations and individuals can actually influence, is how managers show up. Whether you lead people or not, chances are your experience at work is being shaped in a big way by the person you report to. The McKinsey article had data to support this, and later in the session, we'll drop that link in the chat. And I believe for those watching on YouTube Live, it might be in the comments section as well. But actually, Forte's own research supported this. Our own, in our 2025 Career Outcomes Survey showed that direct support from a supervisor stood out as the most important factor in both job satisfaction and career advancement for men and women alike. So if you've ever wondered whether being a good manager really makes a difference, it absolutely does. And so this is when it all came together for me, because I always knew that being a good manager mattered for employee success. But what shifted for me was realizing that it's one of the biggest levers that an organization can influence. An organization can influence how they develop managers, how they support managers, and how they reward good managers. And of course, on a personal level, having a good manager or being one can be the difference between feeling drained by work or feeling energized and valued and supported to grow. So I want to walk through a few simple ways that we can create a more positive and supportive experience at work. First, I'm going to talk to the managers in the session, but don't worry, if you're not managing people, I'll get to you next. For the managers, first, show appreciation. When people feel seen, they show up differently. Take the time to recognize efforts and wins, big or small. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be like a, hey, I noticed what you did on the project. That was a great job. When appreciation is sincere, when it's specific, when it's consistent, it builds energy. People feel valued and they want to keep contributing. Second, lead with empathy. Being supportive does not mean pretending everything's fine all the time. It's about making space for people to be human. When you listen, when you validate how someone's feeling, when you support them without rushing in to fix everything, you build trust. And that trust helps people stay motivated even when things are tough. Third, model self-care. People notice how you treat yourself at work. If you're constantly running on empty, never taking a break, never logging off, it sends a message. But if you set boundaries and take care of your health and protect your time and take your PTO, it shows others that it's okay to do the same. And by the way, that's part of leadership too, modeling self-care. Finally, build trust through kindness. You know, uh, everyone thinks kindness is soft, but honestly, it's not soft. It's a strength and it can't be overrated. When people feel their manager genuinely cares about them as a person, not just as a worker, but as a person, it creates loyalty. And loyalty leads to better collaboration, it leads to more resilience and stronger performance across the board. So those are my tips for managers, but we also don't want to transfer all the weight of the world just to the managers. Organizations and employees alike can support managers in this journey through awareness, modeling, and accountability. So what does this look like for each? Well, for awareness, organizations, please, if you're working in HR right now or learning and development, give managers tools like 360 feedback or coaching to help them see the real impact they have on their teams. Educate them on how important the role of a manager is to their staff. And employees, please share feedback thoughtfully, right? A quick, that really helped, or even just a, well, here's how this landed, can really help a manager grow in real time. They can't respond, they can't change, they can't grow if you're not giving feedback. And we're going to talk a little bit more on accountability for that. Modeling. Organizations. This is probably one of the things that you're going to hear me repeat over and over, but PTO, especially in the US, we just don't use all of our PTO or our time off. Organizations can encourage leaders to model well-being by encouraging them to use their vacation time. Encourage them to use their paternity leave, even the men. And when they are coming to L&D to request training, maybe encourage more soft skills training along with technical training. For the employees, respect your manager's boundaries and self-care. Now, if they say they have to run out of the office at 5 sharp to see their child's school play, don't get them the report they requested by close of business at 4:45. When they lead by example, you need to follow their lead and they're going to start working with you and it builds a healthier culture. And finally, there's accountability. Organizations, what you can do here is make people leadership part of how success is measured, because we all know if it's not tracked, it's not prioritized. And employees, use surveys, use your one-on-ones to share what's working, but also what's not. If you're not going to be honest, you're not creating space for a change. So those are my tips for managers, for organizations, and for individuals, whether you're managing or not. And now I have some questions for you all. I'm hoping you can help me out and participate in the chat. I'd love to see some of your answers. But I want to know, what's one quality you've seen in a great manager that's really made a difference in your work experience? I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the chat more closely. I was really hoping that that the person that reported to me was going to write something in there, but I love these answers that we're getting: connectivity and inspiration, trust. Oh, giving me grace when I'm learning something new. Gabby, I wanna underscore that, right? Um, it's not just giving you grace and giving you time to learn, but understanding that just because you don't do something the same way your manager does, right, doesn't mean it's wrong. And that's always a big one for me. Support, right? Trust and transparency. Oh, I missed the ones at the beginning. Empathy. 100%, 5 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to check in on personal life. Actually, I once was corrected in a meeting. I sat down. I was very early in my career, and I sat down with a senior VP, and I started presenting my data. And he said, "Slow down. How are you? I haven't seen you in a week. I want to get to know you. I want to see how you're doing." And that always made an impact. So that's huge, the taking the 5 minutes. um I have to say, and this did come from a Forte staff member, but talking about my future and career goals, understanding that I want to level up and actually wanting to support me, that is huge. If managers, if you're in the audience right now, I encourage you to look at that. I will say that I mentioned our career outcomes survey. One of the key reasons that people say they're not advancing in their career and that they're facing barriers to leadership is because they have no career path and they're not seeing a vision where they are. Why are they not seeing a vision where they are? Because their manager isn't talking to them about it. So I definitely want to underscore that. Let me share my screen again so I could bring up my second question, because I really love some of these, and I think we all learned from each other, not just from me, obviously, but this is what I'm really curious about. If you could redesign leadership training for your workplace, your particular workplace, what's the first thing you'd add? But also, what's the first thing you'd remove? I'm going to close this, but I can repeat that question. If you could redesign leadership training for your workplace, what's the first thing you'd add or remove? Uh, less presentations and more conversations. I love that. I love that. How many times have you been to training? By the way, I just realized I think I showed you the wrong slide before, so I'll say that again. But less presentations and more conversations is brilliant because, especially as adult learners, that's how we learn. We learn by processing, and we processing something. So a lot of us process by talking it out, right? So that's great. Less meetings and more accountability. I love that response. I don't know how that, I'm talking about leadership training specifically. So are you, for the person that wrote that, are you suggesting for less meetings and more accountability that we train our managers to maybe um, have less meetings? Um, ensure psychological safety, 100%. I'm going to throw in a bonus question here, which is, how many of you believe you can show up 100% authentically at work, right? And you don't have to answer. That was more rhetorical, but I do have to say that's huge, right? And if you don't believe that you have a psychologically safe space to learn and develop, you're not going to. And more opportunities to practice and role play. That's really interesting. Now, I'm curious because more opportunities to practice and role play. it creates a safe space to test things out, right? And I didn't even think about that one, quite honestly. So I love that. I might steal that. Less top-down approach and better feedback loop, bottom up. That I really like that one too. Love that. These are all some great ideas. That's really the content that I have prepped for you today. As with all of our leadership coaches, what we really wanted to do is give you bite-sized content and then open it up for your questions. So, shoot, feel free to type your questions in the chat. I might ask my colleague Alexia to help me in case I miss seeing some of them. Alexia, I hope that's okay with you. I just put you on the spot. But if you have any questions about the content, about how to show up as a manager, how to show up as an employee with a manager, that would be great. And by the way, I'm going to beat someone to the punch because I'm already going to tell you what one of the questions that I'm going to get is. One of the first questions I'm going to get is, what if I just have a bad manager? I actually have been thinking a lot about this because that's always the first question, but I have a bad manager. Like I'd love to give them feedback, but they won't listen to me. They won't take my feedback. Well, first of all, think about I have three kind of tips for you in that case. Number one, try just thinking about things from your manager's perspective, right? Are they just terrible people? I probably not. Or are they trying to meet goals? Are they trying to accomplish something? Do they have to report up? So once you understand that your manager is trying to respond to their manager, it kind of helps you build in a little empathy for your manager. That's the first thing. The second thing is, have you tried? A lot of times people say, I have a bad manager. I'm like, oh, have you had conversations about what you like and don't like, or what's working for you and what's not? No, they won't even listen to me. Well, how do you know if you haven't tried? So my second bit of advice is please try. And my third bit of advice is make sure that you're separating out what you're unhappy with. We all have parts of our jobs that we don't like. We all have things that frustrate us or people frustrate us from time to time, but make sure that you're differentiating between just you kind of being frustrated and getting annoyed and a truly toxic manager. I definitely do not want you to stay in a situation if you have a toxic manager. That is not good. And yeah, and someone thanks. I'm going to get to the questions in 1 second, but thanks for that in the chat. Right, my manager usually asks for feedback, but when I give it to him, he takes offense. He becomes defensive and avoids me. Of course, borrowing from every television show we've ever seen which portrayed therapy, I will share that one of, I think, the best pieces of advice is the frame it as I feel, not you did this, you did that. When you're talking to your manager, don't put them on the defensive right away by saying, or on the like, yeah, don't put them on the defensive right away, but rather try to say, I felt that my role wasn't valued, or I felt that my contribution was significant, but I'm not sure that showed up. What could I have done better? Trust me, you'll get to the part where you're frustrated because they didn't spotlight you, but ease into the conversation. So let me get to some of the questions. How can you get your employer to understand that there is a need for training and development of staff? Great question. I will tell you, and I think that's a I'm going to add a second part, right? Which is what training and development is needed, right? Because sometimes they'll know if there's technical uh, if there's technical issues that they want to address and they want you to do training, but they don't always say, when it's time for communication training or kind of how we work, how we collaborate better as a team. First of all, I think you need to talk to your employer directly. But I also think that you need to gather consensus. Do other people feel that way? Are you the only one in the office that feels that way, or are other people there too? Because if you have a team of 5 and 4 of you really feel like you would benefit from a training on how to collaborate better as a team, I think they have to listen a little bit more. So that would be my bit of advice is try to find allies at work. Okay. I'm a new manager and just moved. I'm a new manager and currently manage a former peer. How do I balance the friendship with being the boss, especially when I have to share updates or new processes that may not be received well? Oh, I've been in this situation. I've been in this situation before. What I started to just share with you all is I actually was in a situation where I became my boss's boss. And right now, I'm in that situation where someone that I managed has we've switched places too. It's very hard when you're friends with someone. But here's the thing. Um, Draw boundaries and be honest in your conversations, right? I do believe that you have to allow them to see things from your perspective or they're not going to get it, you know? And call things out as they are. As a friend, I'm going to share this with you, or as your boss, this is something that needs to get done. As your friend, I also know it's something that you don't enjoy doing. They, the more you explain your own kind of ambivalence with the situation and your mixed feelings, they'll understand and be more open with you. So it's hard. It's hard when you're a new manager and you're managing, but it will happen. I think about the Friends episode from, a million years ago, right? Where Chandler becomes the manager and all of a sudden he's not friends. I don't believe that has to happen. I think you can be that. How do you prioritize training when there's massive company change? Yeah, if I knew the answer to that one, I have to tell you, I think I could write a book. But I don't really. My best thought here is when there's company change and you're just kind of trying to keep up and you are trying to manage everything and you are trying to like kind of do your job as best you can, focus on you, right? And I do always think that training is helpful, but if that's maybe that can't be the priority at all times, right? And also don't forget the training doesn't have to be sitting down and sitting down in a conference room for a half hour, right? Training, what can training be? Training can be reading an article. Training can be reading a newsletter like I did that inspired this whole webinar, right? So you can constantly develop as a professional, even even if you're not necessarily even if you're not necessarily going to a formal training. Um, I'll be a first-time manager and currently the sole employer at a small company. We're about to bring on our first new hire since I joined over 2 years ago. So I have a rare opportunity to shape not just the role, but also the team culture. Ooh, that's huge, right? Well, that's exciting. It's overwhelming. Absolutely. What are some ways I can intentionally create structure, whether that's in how we work, how we collaborate, how I support this person, without becoming too rigid or looking like I don't know what I'm doing? Well, first of all, the fact that you are very conscious of wanting to create culture and build in a support system, you do know what you're doing. So get that thought that you don't know what you're doing out of the top of your head. I will say, and it sounds trite, but communication is the key. Communication, communication, communication. You want to establish check-ins and probably daily check-ins as this person is starting. So put aside time every day. Don't wait until something arises to give feedback, right? Rather, if you have a set time on your calendar, even if it's just 10 minutes for a check-in every day, it will allow you the opportunity to keep communicating, to share that you're open to listening to what they're trying to say, and that you want them to develop. So my best advice for you there is please, please, please communicate, communicate, communicate. Alexia, did I miss any questions? I feel like I did, but I don't see them right now.
No, actually. So those are all of the questions that are in the Q&A box.
Awesome. Awesome. Alexia, not to put you on the spot again, but I'm going to do it. But do you have any advice for the group?
Okay, I feel like I should come on screen now,
Yeah.
since you're getting into it. So yeah, no, I think what I appreciate is that you're talking about the perspective of those who are ma in management, and it sounds like a lot of the questions coming in were about like, oh, I'm managing a team, how do I do this? But I appreciate the other perspective of like the employee figuring out the relationship with the manager, because managing up is a thing that a lot of people have to figure out. So yeah, so I think like keeping that in mind is that it's not a one-way street of like top down, but it can go down up as well. And it's a challenge, but it's also like when making sure you're putting in the work of developing a relationship with your manager if that's something you're really seeking. So trying to establish trust, have it open and honest communication. If you need something, actually ask for it. And if
Yeah.
it's denied, maybe like bring it up again instead of just like being like, okay, they said this no once, so it's no forever. And then like maybe bring some like evidence or things like that or documents to show like why this is important to you and why we should consider doing something like this.
Right.
So yeah, so I think that's like it's very interesting looking at both perspectives when it comes to management since it is a relationship based for sure.
It is, and and that's what I was hoping to get across is that we we all have managers, right? Even
Mhm.
even CEOs manage, report to a board of directors, right? So everybody has a manager, um, and seeing the other person's perspective is always great. Can you recommend leadership development books? Thank you for that. Love that. There's definitely classics. Are you specifically referring to books on how to manage people or how to manage up? The reason I'm asking is because I have to tell you, I tend to read the one that I just read recently, which I love, but she's also a friend of Forte, is a book on networking and sponsoring. And
Mhm.
it's Rosalind Chow's The Doors You Can Open. And the reason I love that book so much is because it really takes out the transactional part of networking and moves networking into kind of a relational, collaborative act. And honestly, that's what managing can be, right? And Alexia, I think that's
Mhm.
exactly what you were talking about,
Yeah,
right?
and I've also read the book. And I do think like yeah, as you were mentioning, it does really translate well into because a lot for many, not everybody obviously, but for many people, they could be in a situation where their manager might be their mentor or their manager is sponsoring them for a new opportunity, a new position that's opening up within the company. So it's important to like keep that in mind. Like, yeah, they could have a traditional role if that's what you want and need, but they could also do more for you in your network. Mhm.
Right, right. Wonderful. Okay, we have one more question and one more question, and then I think we're out of time. Not a manager, but I'm an employee who has worked to establish trust with my manager. I've empowered them and welcomed all their ideas amongst the team, but I feel as though they're not an advocate for me. How do you navigate this? I feel as though I pour into their cup often, but don't feel as though my cup is replenished. That's tough. And yeah, that happens at times. Once again, again, trite, but communicate. Have you asked them what they would like to see to help you develop? Have you not only showed them that you're open to feedback, but said, this is what I think went right in my performance. Can you tell me if you agree or disagree and why? Ask for specific feedback. A lot of times managers aren't giving you what you want because they don't know what you want. But if you ask them specifically to give you the information that you're looking for, it could go a little bit smoother. Having said that, I think we're out of time, Alexia. Um,
Yes, we're right at the time.
we're right at time. So thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate your being here.